Hello everyone, Killer Shrew Fan here, and have we got something exciting for you today? This just came in the mail. It's this! The new for 2017 Papo Dimorphodon figure! And wow, we are really excited because looking on YouTube, we have not seen any reviews for this guy yet, so we're gonna give you the first look I think of anywhere, right here and right now on Killer Shrew Fan's Killer Toy Reviews. But just on first impressions, looking through the packaging, this figure does look like another win on Papo's part. I know when they released their images, this figure was met with a lot, and I mean a lot, of controversy. This Dimorphodon is, for Papo, what the Baryonyx was for them last year. That's how much hate and criticism I have seen for this figure, but, you know, looking at him through the plastic bag there, he doesn't look that bad. But without further ado, let's tear him open and get a closer look, shall we? Ah, there it is, out of his packaging. And as you can see, Papo have included not just a little foot tray for this figure, but an entire case to contain him and make sure he does not warp during shipping, and it's great to see that they care enough to do that for us. But there is the Dimorphodon figure, and just looking at him without that, I think, you know, he's gonna fit in with the rest of the Papo gang. Let's get a closer look at him, shall we? Starting off at the signaturely large head of the Dimorphodon, as you can see, Papo have sculpted in all those tiny little scales to adorn the face. He's got sort of a blue stripe on the tip of his nose, and a yellow eye staring out at you from beneath those brow ridge. Now the head is a little shrink-wrapped at... Oops, too far, go back up. There we go, we can see him a little better now. There we go. Now the head is a little shrink-wrapped, as you can see, but, you know, I mean, that's just not just a Papo thing. I feel like a lot of companies do that these days. But unlike other Papo pterosaur figures, this one has an articulated jaw. And looking in there, you know, Papo, they kind of let me down. They did not sculpt the roof of the mouth as they usually do. And the tongue, you know... this mouth is lazy, alright? There, I said it. I'm disappointed with the mouth. But, you know, I can kind of forgive it because they're not they don't usually even give us an articulated jaw, so, you know, you can easily just close that up and not have to deal with it. But yes, as you can see going down the neck, you've got some lovely wrinkles on the underside, and on the back of the neck, Papo sculpted in little pycnofibers, which is very accurate to pterosaurs. I know it's supposed to be on the bottom part here too, and it looks like they left that just sort of scaly, so yeah, that's kind of a letdown, but at least they've got some going on the back there. I know Papo isn't always the most scientifically accurate, so it's nice to see them, you know, at least trying. Going down the arms there, you've got the large Dimorphodon claws, which may have been used to help it climb trees and cliff sides. Leathery looking wings with a lot of texturing going on both the top and the bottom, and on that wing you can see all of his pertinence, Papo 2017. And there in the midsection you see the wrinkles where the leathery flesh flap is meeting up with the midsection, which is a lovely detail. Oh man, you know, so far I've had mixed feelings, but it looks like they put their usual amount of detail attention into this figure. You've got some lovely pectoral muscles there flexing as he raises his arms. Going down, you can see the powerful looking yet slender legs on both sides. Now, we'll get to that in a minute, but then you come down to the feet here, some gnarly looking claws there, not really weathered like Papo usually does. And then you've got that longer claw in the back there, which is kind of weird on this model because I have seen that claw on many a paleo artist recreation of the Dimorphodon, yet it's always been used to connect the membrane to the back leg, and yet they sculpted it, but then they didn't connect it. So I don't think this claw is inaccurate, I just don't think they filled its purpose with this sculpture. On the back side, as you can see, he's got a sort of zebra-striped tail that swoops down and then up to a red flesh tip, which, to my knowledge, there's no proof of this, but it's always been depicted with a Dimorphodon, that sort of pointed tail. And yes, that about does it for our look at this figure, our closer look anyway. The thing is done with some lovely blue feathers on top, but then the rest of it is sort of that classic brown and cream color, and then you've got the splash of color with the zebra tail and red tip there. And, you know, honestly, I didn't think I was going to enjoy this figure. It was going to be one that I skipped, but then I bought all the other 2017 figures from Papo, so I figured, you know, might as well get this one too. And yeah, I can see why a lot of people have issue with it. It's got this my biggest issue with it is definitely this stance, but we'll get into that. But yeah, it's not what you would usually think of when you think of a Dimorphodon, which is fine for several reasons, one of which being it looks like the Jurassic World Dimorphodon, which, you know, Hasbro didn't do a very good job of giving us good Jurassic World toys. So if you're a Jurassic World fan and you were looking for a better Dimorphodon toy, this guy is definitely for you. As far as accuracy goes, it's not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but then again, a lot of Papo's fairs aren't, so I don't really hold that against them. I mean, yeah, the skull is rather large, as it usually is on Dimorphodon. They were careful to sculpt the two types of teeth that we know Dimorphodon had. I mean, that's where it gets its name from, is these sharper teeth and then these more blunt teeth towards the back of the skull. Its name means two-formed tooth. The wingspan seems a little bit lacking, but then again, you know, the Dimorphodon is an odd duck. It had a huge head and a small body, so the wingspan doesn't really bother me that much. The claw, yeah, I wish they had joined that membrane up. Really, my biggest issue with this figure is definitely the pose, you know? It just looks awkward leaning back on its tail like that. But that's really the only reason. Scientists actually think that its legs could have been strong enough to hold this thing up so it could walk upright, you know, kind of like that. So I don't mind seeing this in this sort of aggressive pose, flaring out its wings like that, but I just wish it looked in a way that the tail didn't look so curly to support the creature's weight. That is my biggest quip with this creature. But other than that, it's fine for a stylized dinosaur toy. It really, you know, it gets the job done. I don't hate it. I don't think you will. And I certainly don't think it's worth all the controversy that has been swarming around it. But enough of that. Let's get more details on it. So, just how big is this new Dimorphodon figure? Well, let's bring in our trusty dusty ruler and find out. So from the base all the way to the highest point, which in this case is going to be that right wing there, you're looking at right around 3.5 inches off the ground, and width-wise, you're looking at right around 6.5 inches wide, about 6.25 inch, somewhere in that zone. So not a bad size figure. We're going to do some size comparisons for you here. Hang tight. Let's go ahead and bring in the Papo Tupuwara figure, and you can get an idea on how these figures would size up next to each other. And I gotta say, I kind of like the aesthetic between these two. It looks like this guy has come and landed on this Dimorphodon's rock, and this Dimorphodon threw up his wings and is like, "Hey, you can't land there. This is my rock. Get out of here with yourself." And so the Tupuwara is going to back down. Next, we're going to bring in the also reviewed on this channel, also new for 2017, Papo Cryolophosaurus, and you can kind of get an idea on how those two figures size up next to each other. So the Dimorphodon is not quite as tall as that Cryolophosaurus, but he's certainly up there. And we do not have any bananas for you this week. And we also don't have any other Dimorphodon figures to compare this to. This is our first Dimorphodon. So instead we're going to bring in the Papo Pterodactyl figure. And you can get an idea on how these two size up next to each other. As you can see, the Pterodactyl is much wider than the Dimorphodon and a little taller as well when you stand them up next to each other. I gotta say though, what I think they improved on with this Dimorphodon is you can pose him like this, standing up. The Pterodactyl, on the other hand, if you try to stand him up, he does not. They both got sort of the splayed wing type situation, but the pterodactyl doesn't have a way for him to really stand. And that's cool. I mean, you can hang this guy up and make it look like he's flying around your collection or something. But I do like the sort of aggressive pose that this Dimorphodon has taken on, even though he isn't a terrestrial walking type stance. I think it's kind of cool. Like I said, it looks like he's flaring up at an enemy or possibly trying to attract a mate with his wingspan or something. So yeah, I like this part of the pose. This part of the pose I have issue with. But yeah, we're not going to get back into that. This is size comparison time. My bad. Well, folks, there you go. That will conclude Killer Shrew Fan's killer look at the new for 2017 Papo Dimorphodon figure. Now, before I give my final rating, I just feel like I should note one more quick thing. The plastic on this model is quite flimsy, pretty much everywhere but the head. The feet even are bendable, and especially the tail is definitely the bendiest part of this figure, and I'm not really sure why that is, but yeah, just something to bear in mind, that this is not the most robust of dinosaur figures. But yes, that is the last thing I have to say about this Dimorphodon, and overall, I think I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10. Definitely not my least favorite of the 2017 lineup. I think that goes to this Oviraptor figure, which I do not like very much at all. And honestly, this figure wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, especially after I saw like all the hate for it. I mean, it's got those pycnofibers, it's got the classic Dimorphodon aesthetic going on, it's got that long hooked claw, its pose, though awkward, is not impossible, and you know, it's got the usual level of Papo detail, so I think this figure is definitely passable, and if you're a fan of Papo, you should, you know, pick it up, you know, support their work. They do good stuff. This is not their best, but it's certainly not their worst. And that is all I have to say about that. But I want to know what you all think of this new Dimorphodon figure. Are you going to pick him up now? Do you hate him? Or do you think he's going to make a fine addition to your collection? What was your favorite Papo new for 2017 model this year? Was it this guy, the Cryolophosaurus, the Ceratosaurus, the Acrocanthosaurus? Let us know all of that down in the comments below. Before we go, one last thing, I would like to tell everyone that we are now on Instagram. So yes, be sure to follow us for updates on new videos. We might do a giveaway if we hit a certain number of followers or subscribers. But you can find all of that information on our Instagram page. So be sure to check us out there to get updates on what we're doing here. So once again, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this first look at the Papo Dimorphodon from Killer Shrew Fan's Killer Toy Reviews. If you did, don't be afraid to hit that like button and subscribe for more killer content. And we will see you in future videos. Just a little side note, the review is over, but if you are interested in picking this figure up, I got mine from everythingdinosaur.com. They were the first website, I think, to be stocking this figure, so definitely head on over there and order this guy if you're looking for him, and also check out their other dinosaur merchandise. They've got great customer service, fast shipping, and yeah, it's a great time shopping at everythingdinosaur.com. Alright, thanks for that. Killer Shrew Fan out.